because nobody ever really goes to school for workforce management or goes, you know what, as a kid, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter. Nobody goes, I want to do workforce management. That sounds really awesome. It's okay to have something come up and throw your plan a little bit. It's okay. You're not Nostradamus, just looking at data. You can't sit there and kick my teeth in on every single phone call and expect me to continue to take that.
If we're not having a strategy, what usually happens is let's switch the fallback functionality on and have a message that we're going to call the customer back when the lines are okay, but we don't have the capacity to call them back. So basically, it's a huge virtual middle finger. Hi, guys. Hi, I'm so excited. Oh my God. Welcome to WFM Unfiltered, by the way. But I just kicked off a conversation with somebody who is such a charming person and just a great professional that I'm already rambling. And we're going to Maryland, by the way. And I'm sorry, but I cannot wait to introduce you to Eric. Eric, please, let's introduce you to the audience because we need to start talking now.
Hi, everyone. Eric Bainbridge out in Maryland. Been in workforce management now for about 20 years. Just most recently at Care First Blue Cross Blue Shield as the director of workforce management there. Super huge fan of all the workforce management studies, all the data. I'm a data nerd. I lived to end up pulling in information and how to end up making it utilized by us so that we can use data-driven type of decisions and do the things that we need to do to move our business forward.
That's not all. Just don't be so shy. Can you please mention what you mentioned to me before we started the recording? Like, what's the background before the workforce management?
Oh, you said that. Okay, so before workforce management, I was military police for about 8 years and change with the United States Air Force, security forces, as it's known today, or security police back when I was in, because I'm old now. After that, I ended up going to MBNA America, which later was bought out by Bank of America. Started off very, 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 very humble beginnings doing outbound telesales, cold calls for credit cards, and was moved into the retention area not too long after that. And then within a year, I was doing some supervisory work. Way that I got into workforce management, because nobody ever really goes to school for workforce management or goes, you know what, as a kid, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter. Nobody goes, I want to do workforce management, because that sounds really awesome. So most people just kind of stumble into it. And the way that I stumbled into it was at MBNA. I was running a fraud services team of about 17 personnel. And I was trying to figure out how I could help the team get better with the KPIs that we had. So I started bringing in the KPIs that were at the corporate level, figuring them out on Excel, and then started figuring out how I could put my team up against those goals, how they would rate amongst each other in the team. So each morning I would pass out, and yes, we were in the office. This is all way, way, way pre-COVID. You could see that, Grace coming in here. So it's way pre-COVID. But people started to notice that, hey, I'm number one, and everybody would hear who number one and probably all the way to like number 5 was. Nobody would ever hear from number 17 was. So number 17 would kind of come into my office there in the cubby at the end of the aisle and say, hey, Eric, how can we get better? And so that started to move us forward. And once you show people, I'm a firm believer, most people want to succeed. And if you give them the tools to do it, they'll succeed. They'll shock you. They'll do anything and everything possible to do a good job. We ended up performing a 15-month streak of top performing fraud team in the company. My boss decided to get me into our IVR strategies area with the fraud department. So I got to learn a little bit about that. And then I was doing workforce management, and it's like a really kind of a strange thing to be on the other side of it and go back and forth. But I turns out I kind of had a knack for it. Love numbers. Yet you have to be a bit of a numbers nerd to be able to be in this field. And you also have to like to solve problems, because that's what you do. You put out fires all day long, whether it's with what you're doing from a real-time perspective, what you're doing from a forecasting, scheduling perspective, or if you're starting to look at different strategies on how you're going to do call routing and how you're going to bring in new queues or bring in new business so that you can end up optimizing your staff. It's always something which to me is the greatest selling point on being in workforce management, because there's always something new that you get to dig into.
Amen to this one. And what a background and what an interesting career changes and how does it all come together in the end. And I don't even know how to start that conversation because we're just so diverse into your background, but because we're talking about numbers and this is ultimately the foundation of workforce management, as you mentioned, I usually go back to the topic of capacity planning, which is something that you indicated you really, really like. And for me, capacity planning is actually that kind of middle ground where numbers connect to strategy and we basically marry them both together and we try to translate that to the business to see, okay, how can we go forward for here and how our operations are going to look like. But this is also a topic that a lot of people underestimate or completely eliminate from the WFM cycle. So walk me through that.
Wow. I hate to hear that someone would eliminate that. In my mind, the capacity plan is the single most important document or product that the workforce management team delivers to the operations or sales teams. Without it, there's no, everybody's kind of running around playing whack-a-mole. And with a lot of industry now taking a bit of time to, train staff and get them onboarded and everything else, you're losing a lot of time by not having the right people in the right place at the right time, which is all workforce management is. Right people, right place, right time. That's the whole goal of it. And it does come under three things that you need to make sure that you're doing. And that's scheduling, forecasting, and you've got to report on it, because if you don't report on it, you don't know how well you're doing. So those are, in my mind, always those three main pillars that are there. For capacity planning, it all starts with your customer base. So how many customers do you have? Do you have seasonality? Are you seeing, and it's never a one size fits all. So whatever industry it is that you're in, you can't sit there and give a cookie cutter response for, I'll use health insurance as an example, because I did health insurance at my last job. So to say that, I'm going to say that for every 10,000 medical members, I'm going to get XYZ number of calls in the door. That's a fairly poor blanket strategy. You want to have something a little more refined than that. It works if everybody's the same age and the same demographic and in the same location. But if you have a large group of business, say that is in Washington State, like Microsoft, let's say you have Microsoft is one of your customers, and they're in Washington State, which is one of the best health states that's out there. And there are also a lot of younger folks, 30 somethings. You're probably going to have lower utilization than you would say if you had Krispy Kreme as your client. Krispy Kreme, probably not with the same focus on health. So there's going to be a higher utilization. So you have to make sure that you're looking at these things in a different lens. The blanket statement of, this many per 1,000, 10,000, 50,000 members, whatever it is that you're looking at, doesn't always fit and shouldn't be utilized. In banking, you have the same type of thing. What is your product that you're looking at? I look at my product and I look at specifically jobs, like job codes. If you have those available where you can see what people do for a living, that demographic responds typically very much the same, regardless of age when it comes to banking. So if you have a CPA, the CPA is going to dig into you on everything that you do, and they're going to look over every piece of information you give them, and they're going to call you a lot more because they're going to challenge everything. A doctor and a lawyer, they're not going to call you regardless of the age. The reason why? They're too busy saving lives. So they're not going to call you as much unless something goes very wrong. So you have to be able to see what your contact rates are. You have to be able to see them by month so that you can see that seasonality, and then put everything together. Then you start deciding at that point, what are your demographics inside the organization? Are you able to put specific skills together and have this group of people handle this group of business? Can they handle all groups of business and everything get funneled in? Extremely unlikely, but if they can, then your economies to scale become greater. You could end up having fewer number of people answering those calls. The more finite you get, the larger your staff needs to become in order to handle those niche type of clients or customers that you have. That's the quick and easy version.
I uh I I have so many questions, but first thing that I'm hearing, and I really like you mentioning that because I usually keep on coming back to the same point, and I think this is one of the reasons why capacity planning fails in a lot of organizations is people do see it as purely a task of numbers. Let's say we're pulling a report and we're seeing, oh, we're getting 100 calls. Okay, let's extrapolate those 100 calls. And this is what we'll be getting every week, every month, every whatever for until the end of the year. But what you do mention is that you need to dig deeper and understand your customer base and ultimately your business. So if you are to launch new products, okay, who is responding to those products? How do they respond? What is their behavior? What would that mean in terms of interactions for your contact center? And I think this is the level of detail that traditionally WFMers do not go into. But I also think that this is why we're seeing a lot of like very senior leadership from WFM and potentially administrative roles that just prepare reports. So how do we teach WFMers that they need to invest time into learning the business in order to reflect it in the numbers?
That's something that has to start at the top. I'm 100% with you. Workforce management has to understand the business in which they're supported, or they're going to be less effective. I'm not going to say they're going to be ineffective, but they are going to be less effective. You have to know what happens in your industry overall, politically, what is going on. I'm not saying take political stances and bring them into work, but you need to understand
Yeah.
how a political decision impacts your line of business and ultimately your internal clients that you have. A prime example, again, and I'll go back to the health insurance industry. A prime example was the Affordable Care Act. The passing of the Affordable Care Act, we knew was going to drive a lot of phone calls because there was a lot of misinformation being thrown around. And it was also a very new product. So people were going to be very curious about what it was, what it was doing. So whether you liked it or didn't, this is what was coming into the business. So you had to know, okay, do I now want to look at segmenting off that population and having my senior people handle those calls? So that's when you start having that dialogue with the business too, which you absolutely have to have. You should be having it monthly at the very least. And if you're in some type of peak season, you should be in touch at least twice a week during peak season. That's my own personal go-to. I love having, my thing is I've always loved having a morning stand up right before the business opens up or your peak opens 24/7. Let's talk about how we did yesterday. How were we in relation to forecast? And if you missed, why did we miss? Did we miss in forecast? Did we miss in our KPIs? What went wrong, or did everything just go swimmingly? Which if it did, then you're probably going to work yourself out of a job real quick. But it's more than likely in peak season, you're going to have those anomalies that crop up that you weren't thinking of, and it's okay. It's okay to have something come up and throw your plan a little bit. It's okay. You're not Nostradamus. You're just looking at data. So it's okay if something goes wrong. You need to recognize what it was and then correct what you can where you can. So if you have like a reserve of personnel that you're able to utilize, such as part-timers, maybe you can move them into a full-time slot for this week so we could get over a goofy email that went out saying, "Yeah, we just canceled all of your policies," and that's like a worst case scenario. But how do we get some extra staff in here to kind of stymie that swell? That's okay. You should not be planning for your business to fail. If you're planning for your business to fail, you got a bigger issue running around out there.
But I like that you're mentioning that because the other important thing, and I'm gonna connect it to your own introduction, is you mentioned that you're a numbers nerd, But
Yes.
what I'm hearing is that, okay, numbers are great, but you need to understand what's behind these numbers. So the reasons why your call volume or interaction volume was spiking yesterday, and it's okay if you couldn't predict it or you didn't predict it, but at least the least you can do is understand, okay, we had a tech issue, we had an announced marketing campaign, we had whatever went wrong wherever in the chain. And the thing that I'm often missing in organization, whose responsibility is that? Is it responsibility of the agents, of the team leads to come and say, hey, we're getting much more calls because something is going wrong? Or it's, let's say, the real time thing, seeing that spike and going and saying, hey guys, is there something going on? What's happening?
So my mind, that real-time analyst, they're the ones that are going to see that big picture first. And they're the ones that have to raise that flag. That's if they're sitting there going, hey, my IDPs or my intraday plan saying that I should have only taken 500 calls in this interval and I took 1,500. I should be raising a flag somewhere along the line going, hey, something went wrong. Does anybody know why we got a sudden swell of calls? Or can we look at some speech analytics and see what's driving this to us? That's the other thing that's out there too now, speech analytics. That's you can get it if you can get something behind that, find out why people are contacting you to begin with, whether it's call, email, text, whatever. You need to know why they're calling so you can see what you can do to be proactive to stop those calls from coming in.
It's so great that you're mentioning that because I really like bridging conversations to my own personal experience and what I learned throughout a lot of mistakes. And I keep on saying that when I first got introduced to capacity planning and I was requested to do it, I was strictly focused on the numbers coming out of reports. And I was going in those meetings because we had the usual weekly cycle where we reviewed what happened. Would that reflect in the upcoming weeks, months? Do we need to recruit more people? Whatever. And I had zero idea about the business, like what's behind these calls. So they would end up talking about campaigns and stuff and anything. And I was like, I can't even understand. I can't translate that into these numbers. So I want to bring you back to that strategic part of workforce management, capacity planning. Who is responsible to basically teach WFM about the business? Is it something that we need to potentially be more proactive and go with different groups and understand, or this is something that we would be expecting is organized for us as a training?
I would expect the leader of workforce management to do any and everything in their ability to get that staff and that workforce management staff to have some training I prefer education to training, get them some education so that they can end up understanding what their business is, what drives their business. The question that rarely gets asked and needs to be asked, whether you're in a not-for-profit or for-profit, is how do we make money?
Sure.
And because that's what's going to keep you employed is how do we make money? Your workforce team should understand how this business operates, what goes into it so that what you can help decipher what's going to come out of it. If you know a new product is coming in, what does that product do? Is that product going to be a boon or is it going to, cause damage to your overall model? What is it that it could swing? Some products are great. Some products, people love them right from the jump. Some products, not so much. Some products people immediately get upset with. They don't like the limitations to them and then they'll call and complain. So you have to understand what's there. And to do that, you have to partner. Workforce is the responsible party. You need to go partner with that operations and sales team or collections team or whatever it is that you're supporting. You need to understand that business. And without that strong partnership, if you're not making partnership and all you're doing is sitting behind your desk all day long, looking at the ASA go up and down and do all this other stuff, that you're not doing what you need to do from a workforce management perspective. You need to understand your business so that if you see that spike and you understand, hey, wait a minute, didn't we make a change last night to X, Y, and Z? And could this be the cause of it? Be informed. You're not going to be informed of everything, but be as informed as you possibly can so that you can understand impacts to the business and you can bring it out there. You can offer solutions when things happen because the operations team, if you're supporting operations, Typically operations is in whack-a-mole. Oh, this problem, I got this problem, I got this problem, I got this problem. Deal with whatever it is that you put in front of me. And that is their job. Their job is to handle the fire that's in front of them, and their job is to coach and develop their staff. Workforce needs to see the big picture. You can't see the big picture and understand what's going on if you don't know your business.
This is so exciting for me. I feel like I can listen to you for hours. And we can go into so many different directions. And I keep on coming back to the numbers element. And for me, one of the massive mistakes is that we focus only on the numbers, but we forget that behind that numbers is indeed customers. So whenever we're focused on targets, for example, service level, abandonment code, this is not a metric as such. This is your business that sits behind it. And often what loses chunk of the business is your service, right? So even if you're not a revenue-based contact center and you're not in sales, but you're a customer service one, I have dropped products just because how shitty the customer service was, because I didn't want to subject myself having to interact or beg for help or anything else. So it's great that you're translating that into the human element of the WFM. Numbers are great, but again, they represent something. They represent people, represent cost, budget, headcount, whatever. So tell me what the thing that always starts the conversation for me is, if you're in an organization that does not believe in capacity planning, and you're often getting the situation where we have a set budget, that's how many people we can hire. That's it. I don't care. You can be understaffed, overstaffed. I don't care. That's how much we can hire. What do we do with that?
That's a great question. If you're lucky, you're slightly overstaffed. Because if you're unlucky and you're understaffed, which most everybody ends up being, in order to catch back up, it's going to take you a year to catch back up at best, because you're now, when you end up getting that type of pressure, your attrition rate typically spikes too. People are like, nah, I'm done with this. You can't sit there and kick my teeth in on every single phone call and expect me to continue to take that. I'm just a human being, and I'm not going to sit here and take this kind of abuse for that long. And it's understandable. When the first, someone gets to a phone call, and the first thing is that you hear is, "You people." That's just buckle up. You're in for a long phone call. Yeah. Thank you for calling XYZ company. My name is Eric. How can I? And you people have had me on hold for XYZ. And he's like, "Yep, okay, I'm going to get yelled at a lot here." And that starts off poor at that point. From it, your NPS dies, your CSAT dies, and most of all, your first contact resolution, it implodes, because people. This is the third time I've called because I can't get in touch with you people. It's just, everything goes poorly. I'm not saying you need 30-second ASAs and 80% service level, 30 seconds all over the place. I don't think that's necessary. I think most people have come accustomed. If you waited a minute, I don't think people are going to freak out, even up to 2 minutes. So you start getting a little bit beyond that, then it starts to get a bit excessive. Your abandon rates go up, and then you feel that crunch and that pain. My thought is, if I get stuck and I'm understaffed, then I got to switch into a new mode of, how do I deflect some of these calls? And I got to figure out how we can self-serve. So with any luck, I'm partnering well with my IT team, not just the voice operations side of it, because voice operations like wildly important, but IVRs, the utilization of IVRs right now, I think people cuss at an IVR more than like an Alexa. Can't say that too loud or mine's going to go off. But it's IVRs. They're the butt of all jokes. You just see people, on TV all the time, an operator or representative, one of those things, just because they're just done with it. In certain realms, I think that they're useful and very helpful, and you can self-serve. In others, probably not as much, because your websites and your apps, those should be at a high level, where if I have to call, it's because something really sticky is happening. I'll tell you, I'm Gen X, and I can't stand to make a phone call into in any of the places I do business with. I can't stand to do it. So if I have to call you, you're already starting here. You got to bring me down here, because I'm ticked. I'm ticked that I had to call you. I should
Okay.
be able to handle whatever it is I need to handle right here and now. So that leaves that customer service agent in a de-escalation mode the entire time.
And
Uh,
what I'm hearing again on coming from you is that this is where WFM also is triggering that strategy element. And for me, again, another mistake is that if we're not having a strategy, what usually happens is let's switch the callback functionality on
oh,
and have a message that we're going to call the customer back when the lines are okay, but we don't have the capacity to call them back. So basically, it's a huge virtual middle finger. And
yeah.
by this point, yes, the client starts calling you back and yelling and screeching and going absolutely.
I know a lot of companies love the virtual hold or the callback.
Mm.
And there are some that will actually measure the time as part of the average speed of answer when from the time that they disconnect to the time they pick back up. But a lot of companies won't. So that kind of gives you the false illusion at any rate that your ASAs and your service levels are so much higher when they're really not. The customer experience is not good. If, I hate the virtual hold technology and the callback. And here's why. Essentially, what you've said is thank you for calling us. We know this is a convenient time for you. It's not for us. I'll call you back when it's convenient for me. And
It,
that's not the message you want to send to your customers. That's especially in a sales environment where it's your prospects. Hey, I know you want to do business with us, but hold on. I'm busy right now. I'll get back to you when I can. You need to that's one of those immediately. We got to do better. We've got to do better. What can we do to get ahead of this? And I know that, that when you look at C-suite and senior leadership, they see these things like as a win. They're not. They're not. You're not thinking of yourself as a customer. And you think of yourself as a customer calling in. And that, by the way, shout out to my old MBA peeps. That was exactly what our model was. Think of yourself as a customer. That's what kind of drives me with all of this now. The workforce portion is just, I want to get you in and get you to the right person without a
yeah.
long wait. Cause I don't want to add to your frustration because you're already frustrated because you had to call me or text me or email me or whatever the case may be. But I want to get you to the right person, whether it's through strategic routing or in certain cases, bullseye routing. I don't know if everybody's aware of that one that's out there with NICE. It's one of my personal favorites that you could use those types of things. You can use those types of things to, get people in a spot where you need them quickly. I guess we're not talking about NICE at this point.
No, Dave. We're not advertising.
But Genesis has it, Five9 have it, all of them have it. All of these have it. It's what you need. You need it to work as workforce. You need to know what that is so that you can utilize the proper tools to get people there. Once you get them there, then that's that handoff. In order to make sure everybody understands, though, gets the whole thing level set. When you go to set up your capacity plan, my model has always been, I would get my sales projections because I'd have to work with my sales team because I got to figure out what my membership base is going to look like month over month. So what are you expecting to see coming in the door by market segment or by product type or whatever the case may be? I get that. Then I can give myself some type of hit rate off or contact rate off of what I'm looking at with those particular numbers. Then I'm going to start I'm going to list out all of my assumptions. A whole tab on that capacity plan should be all of your assumptions. AHT, adherence, conformance, shrinkage, occupancy, all of those things need to be there. And then you need to be able to sit down and articulate those with the business and have the business buy in. If you want to have a problem with getting your capacity model blessed and move forward and have it sit in front of the CFO and say, yeah, we do need to hire to this, you're going to need to have a lot more people than just workforce management on board with it. You need to have your operations, sales, collections, whatever it is that you're supporting 100% behind you on this. And if you get that, I don't believe you. I don't think this is right. This is some voodoo magic. Erlang, I never heard of that. Who's AK Erlang? Never heard of that guy. Then, okay, who do you trust? Do you trust a finance person? And the way I found too, if I can get someone from the finance team to take a look at the model and explain exactly how Erlang C and Erlang X work, that buy-in comes into play. Now you're sitting there providing a very solid model with a forecast at any rate there to all those parties. The way to further instill confidence is not just have the model with the forecast on it. I set it up where my January column is my actuals and then my forecast. I want to see what it looks like right next to each other. I want to see what all these pieces are that are coming together. And my AHT, my adherence, my conformance, my shrinkage, whether it's on phone shrink, off phone shrink versus leaves and things of that nature. I want to see it all right there. And if we've had a spike, what happened? Well, in 2020, we all kind of know what happened. We had a spike in our overall leave utilization because there was this weird COVID thing running around. So went through the roof, but our call volume also dipped because no one was calling in because you couldn't really use health insurance at that point. So it's, those types of things. That's when you're going to come back and have to explain it. And it should be a monthly explanation. Why did we miss? Why is our forecast off? If you could tell me as a workforce analyst why your forecast is off and have that list there, I'm okay with that, because then it also means, maybe for future use, I don't use this month more this 2020. Personally, if anybody's using 2020 data or 2021, I think you should scrap that. 2020 is the COVID year. 21 is the correction to it. I'd scrap both those years and not utilize those in any of my models. But you have to be able to explain those types of things, and it's okay. It's okay to miss. As long as there's an explanation, it's okay to miss. Everyone should understand what your assumptions were walking in, and then you should end up being able to explain why the misses occurred if they did.
This is a great way to wrap the conversation, and maybe just to get your final thoughts on the part that I keep on speaking with people that are absolutely terrified of walking in a room and speaking to senior leadership and being challenged by, I don't believe that, or you're wrong. And somehow I'm getting the feeling that they take that feedback personally and translate it as criticism to their professionalism or character assassination or something. So give me some advice. How can we tell people that this is not, no, this is the job of senior leadership, is to question, to challenge. And at some point, if you have good explanation, it is okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on. Senior leadership, your CEO, CFO, COO, all of those folks are supposed to be questioning. They're supposed to be poking holes in it. In truth, it should be even further down the line. It should be holes should be poked in all the way up the chain, up until you get everything finalized. People should be asking questions, probing questions. It doesn't always if it's just I don't believe this, then okay. What don't you believe? And I don't believe we need that many people. Okay, why? Why don't you believe this? I've shown you why I think we do. Tell me why. Tell me where the assumptions went wrong. And again, we have that list of assumptions, and you're putting that out there first to everybody so they could see this is what your model is based on. Then they can challenge those assumptions. That's fine. If a CEO comes in and says, no, I'm going to decrease our overall average handle time, and we're going to increase our adherence because it has been, I'm just making this up off the cuff, but this is something we haven't monitored very well. We haven't worked on as from a performance management perspective. We're bringing it back. So I want to make sure that all of that comes into play. Okay. What's the new goals then that you're putting out there? What is it that you're going to do so that we can look at, do I need to decrease AHT by 10% month over month? And what's your plan? And then that way, okay, now I can put that back in the model and I should be able to kick that off quick and easy. Once the model's built, you should have something there that does give you those levers that make it really quick and easy. Because if you show a C-suite or your VPs or whoever, hey, if I adjust by 10%, here's what you gain back from the number of FTE. If it goes the other way though, because you brought in something where you want someone to spend more time with one of your customers, whether you're trying to get that first call resolution or first contact resolution up, and it's going to take longer, then okay, we build that in. You need to be able to show them that And when they can play with that in real time, that kind of builds their confidence too. So they see that, oh, okay, the number's doable, but you have to be ready to be challenged and you have to take emotion out. This is it's just the facts. You're looking at just the numbers that came across your desk. Erlang X would be a great example, right? So if you say that you're getting text messaging and you're doing chats and you say, you know what, I don't want it to be one-to-one anymore. I think you handle up to 5. Okay, here's what that does for your staffing needs. But this is, again, everything is set. So if they want to challenge something, here's what you can challenge. The numbers, the math that comes out on the other end shouldn't be in question, especially once you get finance on board. That they should be able to sit there and deflect a lot. No, 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 no. We vetted the formulas and the volumes. That should be fine. But the assumptions can always be and should always be challenged. If you think that things are going to be lax, there's no business that's going to sit there and accept status quo.
I don't know what to say, Renan. I enjoyed that conversation so much, and thank you for just being so passionate about it and just raising awareness how important that topic is, because a lot of organizations are ignoring it in different parts of the world or in different industries. So thank you so much for this conversation. And we're ending up on the note that Eric is currently available to be snatched for a director's position. So I believe now everyone is falling in love with him and his passion. So how do they find you, Eric? How do they stay?
You could find me on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Eric Bainbridge out there. Or you can email me at ericmbainbridge@gmail.com. Feel free.
And hopefully this will be a success story. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.